I now give the floor to His Excellency Kalla Ankourao, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Cooperation, African Integration, and of Nigerian living abroad of Niger.
Madam President, distinguished heads of delegations, Secretary General of the United Nations, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate you, Madam President, on your election to the presidency of this 73rd regular session of the United Nations General Assembly. I would also like to convey my warmest wishes to the other members of the Bureau. I would like to congratulate your predecessors, His Excellency Miroslav Lajcek, on the excellent way in which he and his team headed up the work of the previous session. I would like to express the gratitude of my country to the Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his commitment to the UN. I would like to reaffirm Niger's support for the courageous reforms undertaken to adapt our shared organization to the demands and challenges of modern times. As we are all aware, the challenges are indeed enormous. However, thanks to your determination and the excellent team that is assisting you, we are convinced that we will be able to achieve the desired results. To this end, I would like to assure you of the full support of my delegation. Madam President, by choosing the topic for this session entitled Making the UN Relevant to All People, Global Leadership and Shared Responsibilities for Peaceful, Equitable and Sustainable Societies, by choosing this, you have given us an important reminder of the true reasons which led to the establishment of the UN. You have also appealed to us to renew our trust in the UN. Therefore, my delegation cannot fail to be delighted with this extremely appropriate topic in a world facing numerous challenges. These include terrorism, violent extremism, climate change, migratory issues, and poverty. All of these problems require greater international cooperation and steadfast commitment from us all. To this end, Niger considers that the United Nations remains a valuable organization and an irreplaceable organization, not only for international peace and security, but also to effectively meet the different challenges with which our states are confronted. In other terms, my country pays particular attention to multilateralism and the unifying role of the UN. Pooling our efforts and our resources to find joint solutions is the best way to ensure peace, security, and the harmonious development of humanity. Madam President, regarding migratory issues, firstly, Niger welcomes the finalization of the Global Compact on Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration. This is the first international arrangement set up by the UN to govern migration. Combating irregular migration and other abject practices, such as the illicit trafficking of migrants and human trafficking, over recent years has been at the heart of numerous international meetings. Several commitments have been taken during these meetings in order to eradicate these scourges. With a view to implementing these commitments, in 2016, Niger designed an operational doctrine. This is based on balanced legislation and on appropriate regulatory measures to enable my country to achieve significant results. For example, between October 2016 and January 2018, 2018, we've seen a 90% decrease in potential migrants each month entering the town of Agadez. This is the main port of entry and exit for migrants in Niger. In 2017, 268 traffickers were brought before the courts and 140 of their vehicles were immobilized. These various results have been unanimously recognized and commended by the international community. They are the fruit of the commitment and political will of President Issoufou Mahamadou to combat irregular migration and human trafficking, and to help eradicate inhuman and degrading treatment of migrants as they voyage beyond Agadez. I would like here to commend cooperation between Niger and the UN through its two agencies, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees and the International Organization for Migration. They contribute in a significant way to managing migratory flows in my country. The international conference in Marrakesh that will take place in December is seeking to adopt the international compact, and that will be crucial. Niger is a transit country par excellence, and it will be in Marrakesh to lend its support to this compact. This will be a starting point for structured international cooperation on migration. Madam President, the Sustainable Development Goals are one of the major concerns of the international community in general and of developing countries in particular. 3 years after they were adopted, my country has just presented its first voluntary national review during the high-level political forum to take stock of progress on implementation of the 2030 agenda. This meeting was held here in New York in July. This forum's name was Transformation Towards Sustainable and Resilient Societies. For Niger, this was an excellent opportunity to share with the international community progress made by my country, in particular in the areas of access to energy and education and to health services, as well as security issues. As part of its development efforts, Niger has adopted a sustainable development strategy for inclusive growth, Niger 2035. This strategy has been incorporated into its Economic and Social Development Plan 2017-2021. It is a key part of implementing Agenda 2030. This strategy takes into consideration the 2063 African Union Agenda for the continent's development. One of the key instruments of this is the African Continental Free Trade Area, and this was adopted in March in Rwanda during the African Union Extraordinary Summit organized to this end. This free trade area seeks in particular to overcome dependence on the export of basic products. It also seeks social and economic transformation in order to have inclusive growth, in order to have sustainable industrialization and development throughout the whole of Africa. Considerable efforts to mobilize domestic resources have been conducted in line with the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the Addis Ababa Action Plan on Financing for Development. Nonetheless, we have to note that many challenges need to be overcome if we hope to achieve the goals in these different programs. Therefore, this is why a global partnership that is more proactive and fairer needs to be set up. This needs to be conducted in line with commitments taken by developed countries pertaining to ODA. Furthermore, Madam President, Niger is a Sahel country which is 2/3 desert, and it feels the full brunt of climate change. The impact of climate change has had a significant effect on the economy of the local people, and they can barely tolerate this. The 2015 Paris Agreement is a unique opportunity to save our planet. Niger considers it an honour to implement the activities contained in the roadmap stemming from this agreement. To this end, it will host in November, and under the auspices of the President, a roundtable on technical and financial partnerships. This will define conditions for implementing the climate investment plan in the Sahel region. I would therefore like to invite the international community, as well as our different partners, to participate in this roundtable. Financing of this plan will enable the Sahel countries to better deal with the impact of climate change on our populations and our ecosystems. Madam President, demographic challenges remain another priority area for my country. Niger has a demographic growth rate that is in fact the highest in the world, namely 4.2%, according to the 2012 census. We are aware of the impasse that the country might find itself in if nothing is done to decrease this growth rate. Therefore, the government has stepped up its efforts. It has mobilized the population and traditional religious leaders and its partners to really try to reverse this trend. We have noted a decrease in the average birth rate since then. It has changed from 7.6 children per woman in 2012 to 6 children per woman in 2017. If this trend continues, we hope over the next few years to achieve reasonable demographic growth in line with our GDP. For this, we need significant assistance from the international community. At the same time, the government will continue its efforts to promote school enrollment and to keep girls in school until they are 16 years old. This is the mandatory age. These two phenomena are closely linked. Madam President, earlier I mentioned the major challenges that the Sahel region is dealing with in general and Niger is dealing with in particular. Terrorism, cross-border crime, poverty, extreme poverty, climate change, environmental change. All these things have disrupted the agro-pastoral economy of Niger and has highlighted the vulnerability of the Sahel people. In order to deal with security challenges, the heads of state and government of the region have taken various initiatives. In particular, they have pooled their resources through contributing to the joint multinational force for the Lake Chad Basin and also the G5 Sahel Joint Force. The idea is to curb the Malian crisis and its spread to neighbouring countries. Regarding the situation in the Lake Chad Basin, the 2014 deployment of the joint multinational force, made up of troops from Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria and Niger, has weakened the operational capabilities of Boko Haram. By doing so, it has helped to promote peace and stability in the sub-region. For this reason, the challenges in the region are now more socio-economic than security ones. We need to ensure that people who've been completely devastated after several years of violent conflict, as well as thousands of refugees and displaced people, are progressively provided for. We're talking about rebuilding the economy of the region. A priority is youth employment and the reconstruction of the Lake Chad Basin area. We would like here to thank all those partners who are currently working to tackle the humanitarian impact of this conflict. In the context of the G5 Sahel, a joint force was set up in 2017 to effectively combat terrorism and cross-border crime in the 5 member countries. The idea is to make the region secure and to create propitious conditions to implement development programs. The process to operationalize this force has not been as swift as the affected countries would have liked. Nonetheless, a jump start was given to this by heads of state at the Nouakchott meeting in July, and now the process seems to be speeding up. The 4 operations already undertaken with the support of the French Barkhane force have been successful. The major concern for this force is to ensure that its resources and work be sustainable. The Brussels conference in February 2018 meant that needs in terms of financing for the first year were met. We would like to thank those partners who have undertaken to assist our efforts financially. We would like to launch an urgent appeal to ensure that the pledged finance be actually provided. But over and beyond its first year of work, the prospects are not that reassuring to guarantee that the joint force has the necessary financing so that it can carry out its mission. In order to ensure that this force has sustainable resources, we remain convinced that the best solution would be to place its mandate under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. Madam President, we're talking about the peace and the security of this region, even of the entire world. We are struggling to hide our confusion regarding the hesitation of some countries regarding this. Madam President, the challenges facing us are not just security ones. They are, in particular, economic ones. The Sahel region needs significant investment for its development. We commend initiatives taken that have been cropping up from various different areas, in particular from the United Nations, the African Union, the European Union, and other bilateral partners. However, we need swiftly to implement these initiatives. They need to be implemented in a coordinated fashion. The forthcoming meeting in Nouakchott, on the 6th of December 2018 on the Priority Investment Programme for the G5 Sahel will be a major test to ensure that this development issue be appropriately tackled. In my opinion, development is the best bulwark against terrorism. Madam President, regarding other conflicts in Africa, my country is delighted that there has been a thaw over the last 3 months in the Horn of Africa, and we're delighted with the peace agreement signed by the belligerent parties in South Sudan. Here, we have 2 sources of good news, and we can but thank people for their wisdom that have led to these results. In the Middle East, our session is taking place in a context where international solidarity towards the Palestinian cause has taken a significant step back politically and financially. This can be seen by budget restrictions and the trend to recognise Al-Quds as the capital of Israel. Some members of the international community have done this. Niger reaffirms its support for the aspirations of the Palestinian people to enjoy their right to establish their own independent and sovereign state within the June 1967 borders and with East Jerusalem as its capital. Regarding Yemen, we would like to express our commitment to the sovereignty of Yemen and to its territorial integrity. Niger rejects any interference in its domestic affairs. Niger promotes a peaceful solution to the bloody conflict and expresses its support for the global harmonious development efforts here. Since the World Summit of 2005, Madam President, we have undertaken a global reform of the UN system. The idea of the organisation is to place, the organisation and highlight its unifying and driving force role to promote solidarity and friendship between peoples. The new global partnership for development must involve, in our opinion, the following: the reduction of internal and interstate inequalities, as well as the involvement of all states, be they small or big, be they rich or poor, in decision-making processes in the management of global affairs. This is how we will guarantee balanced governance in the UN. Regarding Security Council reform, Niger remains committed to the common African position that stems from the Esselwini consensus. We would strongly encourage member states to speed up this process and to demonstrate more determination in order to adapt the Security Council to the realities of today's world. Madam President, in conclusion, regarding peacekeeping operations, I would like to underscore that new forms of conflict are imposing asymmetric wars upon us. Given this, we would like to see a radical transformation of the current peacekeeping system of the UN. In particular, we're talking about strengthening cooperation between the UN and regional organisation and troop contributing countries, and to ensure that missions have appropriate mandates for each type of conflict. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank the Minister for Foreign Affairs Cooperation, African Integration and of Nigerian living abroad of Niger.